beginning, God created beast and man so that both might live in friendship. Evil men betrayed God's trust and waged bloody wars, not only against their own kind, but against the apes. Our Savior led a remnant of those who survived in search of greener pastures, where ape and human might forever live in friendship.
Hello everyone, my name's Tom Elliott and welcome to Lawgiver, a Planet of the Apes podcast. One of the good things about having a podcast that doesn't strictly adhere to one format is that I can occasionally take 10 minutes out to talk about a new Planet of the Apes product or development in the movies, and it can be a quick listen in your podcast playlist without taking up too much of your time. So tonight's episode is a short one to give Apes completists a heads up on a collector's edition magazine that's just been released here in the UK that you may want to add to your collection. First up, a little bit of history. Classic Monsters of the Movies magazine is a UK horror magazine that was first released in 2015, and it's very much in the vein of Famous Monsters of Filmland. As the title suggests, the focus is very much on the Universal monsters, the Hammer monsters, and the other monsters from movies around those eras. And it has that wonderful, joyous tone to it that reminds you of being a kid looking at a dog-eared issue of Famous Monsters of Filmland, or, for me, Fangoria, under the covers in your bedroom. Reading and rereading the same issues over and over again, making mental lists of all the movies that you wanted to see. Now, at the time of recording, there are 29 issues of the main magazine, Classic Monsters of the Movies, but at some point they diversified from publishing the main magazine and began publishing what they call their Ultimate Guides. Now, for all I know, the Ultimate Guides may have started first. I don't know the evolution of that part of it, but it doesn't really matter, because what the Ultimate Guide does is it focuses on one movie for the full length of a magazine, digging a little deeper into it than what one article would usually allow, and it's in a glossy, prestige, souvenir format. Now, it's debatable whether our beloved apes would fall into the category of movie monsters, but hey, if we're getting a magazine that's looking at the first Planet of the Apes movie, then I'm not complaining, and that's exactly what we're getting, because the latest issue of this Ultimate Guide, at the time of recording, is a deep dive into the first Planet of the Apes movie. So let me just run through the issue for you so you can decide whether it's something that you want to add to your collection. So first up, when we open the magazine, we have a 12-page article about the complexities of turning Pierre Boulle's book into a big screen epic. Now, if you've heard my Rod Serling's Planet of the Apes episode, then you'll know that complex is certainly the operative word. And the article does a good job of laying out that story in an easy-to-follow format. Obviously, in 12 pages, there is a lot omitted, but that's par for the course. Now, if you've read any of the books on the making of Planet of the Apes, you will probably know the details in this article already. But if you're a new Apes fan, it's a good way of getting a feel for what went on without having to commit to one of the full making of books straight away. But what I enjoyed most about the article is that it uses beautiful, glossy, high-definition images from the film throughout, and then there are fun little trivia boxes dotted around through the article too, giving little tidbits of information like the casting that almost was, that kind of thing. So it's a really colourful and lively looking article, as well as a good read. Then next, there are full-page bios for our main Planet of the Apes stars, Charlton Heston, Roddy McDowall, Kim Hunter, and Maurice Evans, which then leads onto a 2-page spread of shorter bios for some of the supporting players like Linda Harrison, James Whitmore, Jeff Burton, and several more. So again, a good introduction to the cast for newcomers, but also I've been an Apes fan for years and there are some details of the lives of these people that I didn't know because I just hadn't looked into them. So this was a welcome read. Next up is a 2-page spread that basically gives you a synopsis of the film. Now, this one is a little curious because if you've seen the movie, which I assume you will have done if you're listening to this podcast or buying that magazine, do you really need a 2-page synopsis of the movie? Probably not, so I do think maybe that space could have been used for some better purpose, but I think I know what they're trying to do with this. I think they are trying to make it an all-encompassing magazine, so really you get the whole picture from that movie. So I think I see the point of it, but ultimately, as Apes fans, we probably don't really need it. Next up is a page with short bios on some of the men who were instrumental in bringing Planet of the Apes to the screen. Pierre Boulle, of course, for writing the novel, Rod Serling for his early drafts, Michael Wilson for carrying on with the writing after Rod Serling, and then of course the makeup maestro John Chambers, who created the groundbreaking Apes makeup. After that is a full-page bio on Franklin J. Schaffner, the director of Planet of the Apes. And while a page isn't a terribly big space to fit in a career such as his, it was a reminder that while I have seen some of his other non-Apes work, I haven't really had a deep dive into who he was and some of the other things that he'd done, so perhaps that's something to revisit on a future episode of Lawgiver. So we turn the page to a 4-page piece which mops up some of the making of facts, the coming and going of people behind the scenes, but ultimately focuses on the conception of Ape City and the design of the makeup, and as we know, that's always a big point of interest for us as Apes fans. We carry on, and then there is a page of short bios of other people from behind the scenes: cinematographer Leon Shamroy, art director William J. Kreber, associate producer Mort Abrams, and composer Jerry Goldsmith. And then a full-page bio on the man who really is the godfather of Planet of the Apes in cinema, Arthur P. Jacobs, a mover and a shaker, if ever there was one. And then to round out the articles is one that purports to be about interpreting Pierre Boulle's novel, but really just seems like another more general making of with some details that weren't necessarily in the other making of pieces in the magazine. Then finally, the inner back cover is a beautiful high-definition picture of Roddy McDowall's Cornelius standing on a beach holding a scroll, and it's really a great reminder of how much character Roddy McDowall put into Cornelius, that even in a static shot like this one, Cornelius is so filled with life from that performance. So I guess the question is, at £10 of UK money, is the Ultimate Planet of the Apes guide worth your time and money? And to that I would answer this. In terms of quality, it's a beautiful looking edition. It has about 32 pages in it, which isn't massive for a magazine that is costing you that much, but I think where that money goes is the glossy laminated covers and the page quality, really. The pictures and layout inside are just bursting with colour, and the choice of images inside is really spot on. There's a great shot of the Lawgiver statue with Charlton Heston behind it, and there are some really great stills from the movie in general. And apparently when this issue was first released, they put out a limited number of hardback editions, and unfortunately I wasn't able to get hold of one of those in time, but I have no doubt that they will visit the rest of the Apes movies in the future, so keep your eyes peeled for those. In terms of actual content, I would say that if you are just getting into the original Planet of the Apes movies, maybe you were brought in by the reboot series and want to go back to the originals, I think that this is a good introduction to the making of that first movie. It gives you a general overview of how it all went down, and it introduces you to all of the main players in front and behind the camera, and it's just a very easy read. So if you don't want to sit down with, say, Planet of the Apes Revisited by Joe Russo, Larry Landsman and Edward Gross, or The Making of Planet of the Apes by J.W. Rinsler, then this is a good way to get started in your ape fandom. But what about the rest of us, the ones who do have some making of books on our shelves, and who have checked out the documentaries and so on? Well, to put it bluntly, there's nothing in this issue that you probably won't already know. So if that is your measure of whether you need to buy it, then you probably don't need to buy it, because whatever you find in here is probably already on your bookshelf in some other book. But for me, this magazine very much reminds me of when I was a kid and maybe a new Star Trek movie came out, and they would put out a souvenir issue of a magazine about the movie, and it would have cast interviews where they would only tell you so much because they don't want to spoil the movie, maybe some articles about the special effects or the making of it, and many colour pictures of the film itself. And they were always light and easy to read and really got you hyped up for the movie when you were a kid. So although this was written decades after the fact, this is kinda how I see it, just one of those companion souvenir piece magazines. So even though I pretty much knew everything that was in it already, I just enjoyed taking half an hour out of my day, sitting back and getting wrapped up in Planet of the Apes for a while. It was easy, undemanding, so it's perfect fodder for, say, if you're going on vacation and you want some light reading material for the aeroplane or on the beach, because sometimes light and undemanding reading is all that you want. So if that appeals, then perhaps this is for you. And I guess if you are a Planet of the Apes completist, then you're probably going to get it anyway. So this isn't a sponsored edition of the podcast. I wasn't sent the issue for free. I don't know anyone involved with its publication. I bought and paid for it on the website like everyone else. So if you want to check it out and see whether you want to pick it up yourself, I will put a link in the show notes, and that link will be to classic-monsters.com, and when you get there, click on shop on the menu, and then across the top you will see a drop down for movie guides, and then the Planet of the Apes issue is in the section called Ultimate Guides. Now strangely, the issue itself doesn't say Ultimate Guide on it, it just says Exclusive Deluxe Collector's Item Edition. And truth be told, no, it isn't the Ultimate Guide anyway, but I think we all expect a bit of hyperbole in our marketing, so we can forgive that. But what it is a nice way to immerse yourself in the details of a movie that we all love for half an hour out of your day, when all you want is some easy reading. So I'm Tom Elliott, this has been Lawgiver, and I will speak to you next time.
We still wait, my children. But as I look at apes and humans, living in friendship, harmony, and peace, Now, some 600 years after Caesar's death, at least we wait with hope for the future.